Friday's economic blackout encouraged consumers to keep their money in their pockets against companies like Target and Amazon because no diversity, no dollars. Here with me to discuss whether this boycott worked is Daniel Laurent, who is CEO of Black Dollar, and Imari Paris Jeffries, who's the president and CEO of Embrace Boston. Hey, how y'all doing?
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for being here. So I saw a stat today that kind of made me just raise an eyebrow. Amazon, by the end of the day on Friday, had seen a 1% higher than average rise than it had seen across the past 8 Fridays. And this was on the day of the boycott. What do we think about that?
You don't say.
Well, you know, they control the data, and and I think when we learn this information, because we know that this is an algorithm game. When did those transactions actually take place? Oftentimes, if you purchase something on Wednesday, it doesn't actually show on the books until Friday. And so I wonder if there was an uptick from the day before, people anticipating the boycott. And so it just gets us to think about, should this boycott be more than a day? Should it be 48 hours? Should it be 72 hours?
Yeah, and that's a great point because there is another boycott that's planned, targeted at Amazon only for the week the week of March 7th. And Daniel, you've written in the Bay State Banner just in February about the effectiveness in boycotts and how intentional people must be around them. Do you think that this recent one was intentionally planned and executed?
I think so. I think that we have to factor in the days and times that we're in and with technology and all the distractions, right? And I think the Montgomery Bus Boycott was it 13 months? I think 13 months. We are in a time where there's so many distractions, people pulling constantly. And so to have a collective target, no pun intended, and you do this, and now we do this. I think being on code is super important.
And what does that mean, on code?
Being on code. So I wrote this in the banner, and I also say it all the time. If you are not going to, go and call your legislators, march, sign petitions, support organizations that do work that you believe in, then do not get in the way. Don't go out of your way to be a contrarian. And I think a lot of people pride themselves on being free thinkers and
Speaking truth to power.
Yeah, but just step aside for a second, right? do not get in the way.
Are you talking about the people, because this was all over social media, right? People were like, I pulled up at Walmart and I saw a bunch of people, many of whom were of color, going into the store on Friday, February 28th. I saw someone repost that and say, well, if you were there looking at it, what were you doing there? Showing up, being the one looking at them, right? But is that being on code?
I think, being on code, I think if you agree, I guess you have to agree and you have to buy in, right? Just like an employee at a job and you're training your team, there has to be buy-in. Otherwise, people are not going to follow the policies and the orders and the things that you're asking them to do. But I think that there are just so many people that are going out of their way, and with social media, everyone having a voice, everyone having a platform, followers and likes and hashtags, everyone wants to go out of their way to be against. And it's just frustrating when you are trying to fight for the very people who are fighting against you. So,
And we were talking about this earlier, and just reflecting, at the conclusion of Black History Month, and at the conclusion of the Holiday King's last book, Community Over Chaos. There's been a lot of information thrown at us, and folks have gotten discouraged, and that's a part of it, right? That every day there's a bad news story. Every day you go to the grocery store, and your milk is $7. Something bad is thrown at you, and there's this overall malaise that has covered people over. And so people ask you, how you doing? And you don't even know how to answer that these days because you don't know.
Because most people are not okay.
They're not okay. They're not okay. And some people have opted out that, this is way too much. I'm not even going to participate in anything. And part of this is momentum building. I think Daniel's talking about momentum building. One boycott, 1 day, 2 day, 5 days. It's muscle memory. And we have to pick this up. We have to get that snowball going. And I think that's a part of that boycott. Now, one uptick on 1 day, sure, but we got to do it again and again and again.
Yeah, I was actually at the hair salon Friday. It was a Black-owned hair salon, so I
I
was
was getting ready
trying
to
to
ask.
spend intentionally. I had booked the appointment ahead of time. It was facing a
And
cancellation
your hair looking good. We were
fee.
talking about hair
Thank
earlier.
you.
It's looking good.
I appreciate it. And this was a topic of conversation. As soon as I walked in, people were like, "Oh, are you doing the boycott?" Because one of the patrons was like, "Oh, I want to go get some coffee," and the subject came up, and this particular person was like, "Well, I have been boycotting Amazon for about a year and a half now," and so I think that's they mentioned this is the thing that people have to remember is that it is over a sustained period of time. We kind of have to be on code, not just for this one day, but for a long period of time. But at the same time, we recognize, right, Friday may not have been the ideal day to go into a boycott heading into the weekend.
Well, so to the point of, yes, Saturday is when people usually off work and go shopping. Friday is also the day a lot of people get paid. So it's similar to, I guess, if you want to make the correlation, um, if you have if you have direct withdrawals being taken out of your account, right, the moment you get paid, you might be able to save a little bit more versus when you have all that money and you're like, oh, I'm going to buy some pizza. So if the day when you get your check, people are saying, do not do this, it's kind of like, okay, right? So I think that might have been part of the process. And maybe because people were at work all day, right? If you're at work all day and you get off at 5 or 6, and this is what the task is, this is what the assignment is, as everyone says, it's a little easier to, you know what, I'm just gonna go home. Versus Saturday, you're out, you're off work, you know, I want to go buy these new sneakers, I want to go buy this new purse. So I don't know. I wasn't a part of the planning. However, to my point, it wasn't a heavy lift for me at all. And I think I started my day going to Shea Butter Smoothie, shout out to her, and just don't get in the way.
And Shea Butter Smoothie is a local Black-owned
Yeah,
business.
2 locations, JP celebrated 1 year anniversary. So shout out to her.
And also, you mentioned supporting a Black-owned business on Friday. I did as well, and that was part of the messaging that People's Union put out when they explained this blackout is like, if you absolutely have to spend money, spend it, try to spend it at a Black-owned business, try to spend it with cash. But there are also Black-owned brands that have their products at Target and at Amazon, at other large retailers. And do we hurt them by not supporting them in these places?
It's how they get us, and it's how they get us, and I think to go back to that first subject a little bit, we are figuring this out
In real time.
in real time. No one has a cheat code, a roadmap. We haven't done it like this before. There's been similarities in other boycotts in the past. And even the sit-ins and lunch counters was another form of economic disruption, right? And so we're not going to get served. We're going to sit at lunch counters. We're going to disrupt economics peacefully, right? There's another way of peaceful protests on economics. So there's no roadmap. I think we're trying to figure out how to do it. A potential collateral dividend of these boycotts, shopping black, shopping local, is that we should see a positive spike in the environment, right? So many products are shipped across country when there's opportunity. Now we pay so much. It's actually not a savings to use these big box stores, right? It's actually more beneficial to shop locally, to shop black. And so there's going to be a collateral dividend of this, an emphasis on shopping in our own communities. And I'm excited about the optimistic excitement about that future.
Now, we do have to acknowledge that in some rural communities, right? People may not have the luxury of shopping, of having a number of Black-owned brands to shop from. But are there alternatives? Are there other ways they can support them?
I think if you Google, I had the thought of creating this, not that it doesn't exist, but I think the maintenance of when you Google like Black-owned businesses and there's directories, then you click on stuff and it's like the page is expired and, there's no upkeep. But I think that we are in a time where the technology is at your disposal, and so you can find said things. Now, I have a problem with people who are not Black and brown owned, and they'll put that on there, right? That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But I think supporting people directly is something that you should do anyway, right? And it helps the business more than it hurts. And so you mentioned Target or Amazon. I want to shout out Black Men Smile. the story is he was in 1900 Targets, and with their change, he withdrew and didn't renew.
I see.
Right.
So there are a number of ways that the brands themselves are trying to find new ways to posture themselves to consumers.
And it's not a one size fits all. Like, it's going to be different for different people. But beyond code, hashtag.
Beyond code. So last thought here before we wrap. How do we, moving forward, if we are going to continue to see these boycotts, how do we make them effective? Very quickly.
Well, we have to participate. We have to participate, and as local activists, we have to help spread the word. I think some people didn't know about it. I'm going to give people a pass there. Some people didn't know about it. It wasn't televised. It wasn't elevated in a way that people saw it. So, and people have to keep up the faith. This is not going to be done in 1, 2, 3 times. It is going to be a continuous effort. Daniel talked about the Montgomery Bus Boycott. We talked about the sit-ins earlier. It's going to take a while for some of these things to have a immediate and lasting impact.
And I'm sure this is not the last conversation we'll be having about them. Imari, Daniel, thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.